That's good, right? Okay, so it is Sunday afternoon, and in the meditation class yesterday, a question came up asking me to talk more about the idea that meditation can reduce suffering. So the class is a foundations class, right? So the focus is very much on the posture, a good pose, a good sense of alertness and balance, openness, and the ability to pay attention to an object, focus on an object, and recognize when we've become distracted, when a thought or a sensation or some kind of phenomena has captivated my awareness and I've followed that thought rather than continuing to pay attention to the breath. So how does that make us feel better? How does that reduce suffering? And it can get a bit heady and a bit heavy, right? Because it start to talk about, well, as you meditate and as the practice of equanimity and openness stabilizes, you see the thoughts and the phenomena as things that arise in a space, right? And it's important to recognize that I can talk about these things and I can give an intellectual description of ideas, but ultimately everything has to be scrutinized. So everything I say and everything that the students in the class asked has to be the real answer is sit and look and see, right? So one of the things we can say is that we reduce the suffering because we are no longer attached to experiences or thoughts, and one of those experiences or thoughts is actually the experience or idea of a self. That there's no permanent self. This is like one of the core statements of Buddhism. Well, it's easy to talk through a model where we can say there is no permanent self. You can start with the weather outside. The seasons clearly change over time. The day overnight cycle changes, right? You can kind of guide yourself in to a point where, the breath, am I the same person before? Am I the same person now as I was before I took that breath? I'm not the same person that I was this morning when I woke up and I was cranky and I had coffee, right? There are things, but this sounds really obvious, but this is, who am I then? Am I that self at 4 o'clock this morning that was just getting out of bed, or am I the self now, some number of hours later, feeling entirely different, right? So it's not that there is no self, it's that there's no permanent self. Then we can talk even more granular than that at the synaptic level, like what is the self? Right? So this is quite a lot to come up with in a foundations class. Not that it's dangerous or occult or secret. It's just when you sit, and it's the early stages of sitting, the occupation of distraction is sufficient, right? Trying to pay attention to an object, the breath or a mantra or a mandala of some kind, is difficult enough, right? This is very simple, and at a certain point it becomes spontaneous, but at first there's effort involved. So I wasn't sure that I'd given a very good answer, and I thought I would dig into this book, The Intimate Mind, which my teacher, Tempa Dr. Lama, wrote. And for that class in particular, the calm abiding class, this is really the text that I that I use is his book on the practice of meditation. So, I jumped towards the end where he's talking about open presence. And you kind of have to visualize out, right? When we sit and we have a pose that is balanced, right? The balance between alertness without tension, right? And the mind mirrors that. It is alert, it is aware, but it is not distracted. It's not following the thoughts. Here, so why does meditation? How can meditation reduce suffering? So I'm just going to jump right in here. If we do not interfere with them being the emotions or phenomena of any kind, if we do not interfere with them, they will also dissolve. If we are able to recognize this and do not attach ourselves to an emotion that arises, the intensity of that emotion will be much less distracting and less destructive. I have to say, an emotion in and of itself is not negative, and nobody is saying that we should not experience emotions. There's no sort of blank slate of Buddhism that is inhumanly devoid of emotion, right? It's more like allowing the emotion to be truly itself, and part of that is that it will dissipate, whether that's anger, jealousy, frustration, anxiety, a negative emotion, or a positive emotion, joy, excitement. These are experiences that, left to their own device, can be what they are, and then part of that is that they will dissipate. This recognition is wisdom, Temple writes. It gives us the strength to leave things as they are, right? To let the emotion, let the sensation be what it is, without modification, without adding a story to it. Leave things as they are, which reduces our subconscious attachment to the emotion and the unnecessary pain and suffering that is related to it. We may suffer because we question why the situation to which we are reacting is happening. We may suffer because we are working against the emotions with which we respond and are trying to get rid of them. We create suffering by separating our emotions from the true nature of our mind. Why is it important to leave things as they are? It is important because by nature everything is self-arising, self-luminous, and self-dissolving. Everything, right? And this is where the foundational meditation practice of non-distraction, equanimity, becomes the practice of the enlightened mind in its most mature form, because ultimately we are sitting and releasing attachment, observing, and ultimately allowing everything to be as they are. But there's stages that we need to go through, I think, right? I say there are other ways of looking at it, where the enlightened mind, the mind of letting it be, will, in a flash of lightning, be there, and then the practice is to stabilize that. That has not been my experience. It may well be your experience, but my experience is that there's tweaks and adjustments to our perception that we make, and then we recognize certain things. We, like other not useful thoughts or belief structures, can be set aside slowly over time. I find that what's left is this open, authentic presence that then can be further explored. Everything comes and it goes. It does not stay forever. But this is only possible if we allow it to manifest its nature. If we hold on to it, it could also take a lifetime to dissolve. So the practice of meditation, from the very first moment that we sit with the intention to practice meditation, is the ongoing recognition of the nature of mind, the nature of the um, upwelling of phenomena, which are perturbations of consciousness, and our ability to experience them as they are without attachment. Again, just to wrap up, the without attachment does not mean with disinterest. It means scrutinize to see as they truly are. Anyway, hopefully that helps a little bit. And I'm going to, I think, bring this to the class next week, which is in Pittsburgh at 8:30 in the morning. For those of you who are in Pittsburgh and may be interested in stopping by. But for everyone else, or indeed for everyone, keep your wits about you.